Hey everybody, this is Curtis from PSNStores.com. Today we're going to take a look at Loud on Planet X. Um, this is a kind of a rhythm game, a little elements of like a Plants vs. Zombies in it as well. This is made by Pop Sandbox. So it's kind of featuring a list of 14 different artists, each with 2 songs apiece, so it's 28 songs total on this little like sort of campaign that they've got here, leading up to a boss fight at the top. Right there with a big alien. And so it's a lot of like indie artists, so you might recognize like Churches, Mets, Lights, Metric, Tegan and Sarah, different art. So artists like that. Those are the ones that I kind of recognized off the bat. The list itself of tracks, in my opinion, at least for my taste, like they range from really great. Churches is like, for example, one of my favorite bands at the moment. But then there's like also a handful that I just really don't care for at all. But that obviously is going to play into your personal taste. So the reason why this game caught my eye, actually specifically, one of the reasons why I bought this game is, we got a press release and it was like, hey, Churches is in it, and I was like, oh, okay, interesting. I did not know that because I had heard of the game before. And when I heard of it, the reason why I remembered it specifically is for how it looks. I think it's got a great look to it. One thing I love, probably my favorite thing about this right here, is whatever song you're playing for whatever band, the band's likeness appears on stage. So like all that's Churches right there. If you play one of the songs from by Lights, like she's right there, and it looks like her, like it looks just like her, and that's really interesting. And actually, when you see at some point in the song, when I do like your special. Which is like that loud meter that's filling up. And when you do that, you'll see like the special kind of like goes with the band. Maybe some imagery, like logos if they have one. And that stuff is really cool. So how this plays, like here it is right here actually. So this is very Churches, right? And I like that. It's the part when you start playing it that has me a little disappointed. When I saw this, the way things are going from right to left, the characters of the band standing on one side, you're fighting incoming enemies as the song's playing, and you're doing it like to the rhythm of the song. It reminded me a lot of Theatrhythm, which if you played those games on 3DS, it's a really it's great just to have a ton of Final Fantasy music. But they got a very specific kind of way that they play, and it's kind of similar, where you have enemies coming in instead from the left to right, and you've got your party on the right-hand side of the screen, and then you're fighting as the song's going on, and it's all to the beat of the song, and it's just done really well. In this game, you're hitting the buttons to the beat, or to the rhythm of the music. You see the screen flashing around the edges, so you're hitting the buttons to that beat, and if you're off beat, those speakers are not going to shoot out the lasers. It's just, they're not going to work. And so you've got to be on beat with it. And you see on the top right, there's an icon that's flashing that's filled up. And so there's a bunch of different power-ups you get. Like I just laid right there. It's like a smoke machine, so it like slows down the enemies a bit. And so there's a handful of those, and they all have their own abilities too. And so I guess that's kind of where the Plants vs. Zombies element comes into play. But the gameplay itself is not, I don't know, it's kind of interesting at first, but the more and more you play it, because it's either fast or slow depending on the tempo of the song, it's kind of interesting at first, but I think what it's missing is the thing that I really like about, if you play a rock band, Guitar Hero, Amplitude, you get that feeling that you're playing your favorite music, right? You kind of feel like you're part of the song, whereas in this game, it just feels like the song is playing, happens to be playing in the background while you are hitting buttons to a certain rhythm. You don't really feel that connection to the song, if that makes sense. And I think that's kind of lacking. There's also not really leaderboards at all, which is kind of strange for a rhythm game. And also the other kind of thing is once you've finished all the songs, you unlock a boss fight, which is basically a medley of like a handful of different songs from the game. And when the track switches over to a new song, obviously the rhythm's going to change, but the game like stutters for a second or two, which is very strange, and it's very like disorienting, especially for something like this where you need to be able to change rhythm quick and that really, really hurts that boss fight, which otherwise could have been pretty interesting. So I think we're gonna do one more song. This is all like post commentary. I tried recording and talking at the same time, and that just does not work with a rhythm game like this. But yeah, it's the gameplay itself it doesn't really change. Not that it would for a game like this anyways. But I think I don't know. Like I don't know what I would change about it, right? Because you are hitting it to the beat, but I found myself longing for the style of rhythm game where you've got a very specific. If you think of like a Rock Band or Amplitude, that's probably the easiest connection you can make. You have the lanes like you do here. You have multiple different lanes. But having those lanes tied to an instrument, for instance, or maybe like having it tied to where like, okay, certain notes are coming down a certain time, so as you're hitting those notes, that's also playing with the song. Like, I think that's where those games succeed, right? Is because like doing that when you hit those notes, it's you doing that, right? And if you don't hit it, then it screws up that song. And so even when you're failing, you don't really get like the song doesn't start screwing up, right? It still very much feels like, oh, the song just happens to be playing in the background. So you don't get kind of that feedback that you would maybe want from a rhythm game like this. And I think that's kind of where it faults and kind of falls flat a little bit. Because I look at this, like, I think looking at this game, it's like, wow, this got a really interesting look to it. This is very different, which it's definitely a plus, as far as like rhythm games are concerned. Like it's cool to have something a little bit different, more unique. Definitely the track list is a lot more unique. It's some of these bands you probably just wouldn't see in a rhythm game, which is really cool. But I don't know, like it just doesn't have. I don't get those same feelings that I get when I play other rhythm games that I really enjoy, and the lack of like a leaderboard, amongst other things, makes it something where like I've played all the songs, I've did the boss fight. I don't really have any desire to go back and replay anything else. To be honest, like I think overall I like the track list quite a bit. Like I think the majority of the songs I do like. Some a lot more than others, but there's definitely a handful in there that I could have done without. But overall, it's I'm really disappointed, to be honest, because I remember when I first saw this game, it was on Kickstarter, I think about maybe a year and a half ago, and it looked really interesting to me, and I definitely like immediately made a Theatrhythm connection, and I don't necessarily, I wouldn't want it to play exactly like those games. I would like it to be different, and it is, but I do think it's missing out on a lot of things that other rhythm games do a lot better, and that's unfortunate because this is cool and it's cheap. I got it for like $7 on Plus. I think it's $10 without Plus. So it's really interesting, and I would love to recommend it, but I just don't know that I can because I don't think the game part itself is actually very fun to play, unfortunately. But there are a lot of things to like about it, as I mentioned, like the in-game representation of all the bands in the game. Like the people in these, like if you're familiar with these bands, when you see them, it's like, yeah, that looks just like them. That's really cool. When the loud meter fills up and you do their special, and the way that kind of also connects with, the band's look, maybe their logo, like that's also really well done. And I think the core concept here, and I like it's interesting. I like the look of the aliens, but I think ultimately when you start playing it, it just, after a handful of songs, I really didn't want to play anymore. And the only reason I finished it is because I spent money and I wanted to actually see it through and do all of it, and I wanted to see what the boss fight was like, and that kind of left me a little disappointed too, unfortunately. That's gonna do it for this video. I just wanted to get out some impressions. I don't know if I'll do a full review of it or not. Interesting game. I wish it was a little bit better, but at the end of the day, I was just kind of disappointed. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. If you like this or any of our other YouTube videos, subscribe to our channel. If you'd like to support what we do in general, be sure to hop on over to patreon.com/PSNStores. Your patronage helps keep our podcast 100% ad-free. Thanks for watching.